We're live, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Democratic Service Committee meeting, 6th of September. And the first item on the agenda is apologies.
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies from Councillors Martin Grocott and Matt Feekins.
Right, thank you very much. Any declarations of interest?
Chair, could I just, I'm not sure if Councillor Clark is with us. If he's not, could I give his apologies, please?
Right.
Thank you.
But he still could turn up, could he?
Yes, I understand so.
Right. Right. Item 3 is the petition system. Do you want to come in on that, John?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this item covers a public participation scheme and a petition scheme as well. Both are required under the Local Government and Elections Wales Act. They don't take effect until next May, so they'll come into force at next May's elections. That it's a statutory requirement that as a council we have to have one. But we've been working on the ability to have E-petitions submitted to the council rather than our standard paper submissions that normally come in. So we've taken the opportunity to pull together a public participation strategy and a petition scheme, and we'll put them all into one document. The covering report there just sort of states what's in the legislation that we have to include within our public participation strategy and petition scheme. So they include ways of promoting awareness among local people of what the council does, how to become a member of the council and what membership entails, how they can access decisions and information, how people can actually get involved with the council, etc. So they're all on the front of the report there. And then just in terms of the petitions, we have to include how a petition is going to be submitted, how and when we acknowledge receipt of the petition, and what steps we will take when a petition meets a certain level of criteria that we'll come on to discuss. So we pulled together the public participation strategy. It's taken from a document that we had on the website already that detailed information on what each committee covers and how its membership is made up, and we've sort of expanded on that to include more things around how to become a councillor, what a councillor does, how to ask questions at council, voting at elections obviously, and we've expanded that obviously again with the petition scheme at the end. I think the first point that members will be interested in is the submit a question to council bit that we've adapted. So in there we're including that the deadline for questions to be submitted to council is 3 working days before the meeting starts. So at the minute it's currently 7 days, which is before the agenda is published. So no member of the public could ask a question that's relevant to that agenda item. And I know it's something we've been discussing for a while about changing and getting it changed from the Constitution. So that deadline's been put in there, so I welcome your views on whether that's appropriate. What we'll do with the Constitution is we'll reference the public participation strategy as a required document that we have to now have, as being detailing how members of the public can interact with the council, and then that'll give us as a committee a bit more flexibility in terms of adjusting these bits going forward, and whether they're appropriate without needing to review the Constitution as a whole. The final bit and the real meat of the discussion that I'd like members to have today is what we do with the petition, and what sort of support it needs to have. So I've highlighted just in the document in an orange box there a discussion point for us, and it looks at what sort of level of support should a petition need before we do something with it. So just examples there, if a petition, someone submits a petition on our website and we get nothing, or they get less than 50 supporters for it, should we then act upon it, or should we just note it? If it gets over 50, should we then do something with it? Is a response from a chief officer appropriate, or should it be always come into full council? Maybe a select committee is a better option for the petitions to be received at, so they can discuss and debate whether it needs a recommendation from a select up to cabinet or up to council. So really, I'd welcome your views on how you think that would be appropriate and what we should be included in there. And then anything else to do with the petition scheme and the public participation strategy. But as I say, it's not coming into effect until May next year. So the plan with this for the moment is that we'll agree it as a committee. We won't take it forward to council until later on in the year, once we know what the statutory guidance is from Welsh Government on what we have to include, because that's not available to us yet. So it's going to be along these lines, but if we need to adapt it, we'll keep it here with the committee until we're at such a point where we're ready to hand it over to council to formally adopt it. But these changes will come in now, and we'll work it through in practice as we go along. So over to members.
Tony's got his hand up.
Tony, you've got your hand up. You're on. Tony?
Sorry, I was out in the garden. Yes, the 3-day notice of questions to council, I think, is a good move, but that doesn't change the fact that the chair could still accept emergency questions, which may or may not be relevant to the agenda, which we may be less than 3 days. So I think that needs clarifying. Regarding the petitions, I'm a bit lost as to. I shouldn't be lost, really. I understand that if you're a councillor, you can bring a petition to council, present it to council, but I'm not really sure how we develop the one which could be 50 members, or up to 250, in how they would come to council or to council as a petition. Would they go straight to officers, to members of the public, or a member of the public on behalf of 50 or 60 people? What is the way on that, John, do you reckon?
Yeah, perhaps I should have explained how the petitions will actually work in practice, and make it a bit clearer. So there'll be a section on the council website where members of the public can register with us and submit their own petitions. They'll then come through to us as a democratic services team. We'll assess whether it's something we can consider a petition on, and make sure that it's suitable for publication. And then at that point, it'll be on the petitioner to share that link with anybody else who wants to register and support their petition. So they'll give a link to everybody else. They'll register, sign in, and show their support. And then there'll be a pot basically on the website of all petitions that come in, and it'll show the level of support for each item. We can obviously use paper versions as well, and we can add manual signatories to those electronic petitions as well, so we can accept both. It just expands on the petition scheme itself. And again, so this is why I'm putting those sorts of questions to you around what level it is, because we'll just have a pot of petitions that will be sat on the website, gathering support, and we'll have to act on it depending on what sort of level it supports it receives. We obviously don't want a petition coming to council or to a select committee where only a handful of people perhaps have signed it. It's working out what it is that is going to determine the level of support that's required for us to then take further action on something. Is that clearer, Tony?
Sort of. It seems to me it's very similar to E-Petitions to government, where you have 100,000 to a petition to be read in Parliament. I think it'd be slightly different for us as a council, in that we do bring petitions forward as councillors, which are not discussed at council, but accepted by council and taken to officers, as opposed to what I see as an E-Petition system, which could be independent of councillors, and it would follow a council procedure, which you just discussed.
So it's the procedure in the background at the minute that we haven't got in place. So the current system doesn't cover that. A councillor would still take that petition to council or present it to council, but it's not going to be a paper petition. It will just be you're bringing the item with those petitioners who've signed it in the background online. So yeah, very similar to the way the rest of the government e-petition schemes work. But again, you'd still bring something to council or to a select committee. Again, it doesn't have to go to council. And I think, is it appropriate at the minute for petitions to go to council, and then possibly is the right thing happening in the background off the back of you submitting a petition to council? does it need to go to a select committee possibly, where it then has the debate on the petition with the recommendations coming back to council as a result of that? It just seems a better loop to me that way than a councillor presenting their petition to full council and then not really being clear on what happens with it or where it goes and what happens with that discussion. So I'm looking to try and tighten up what we do with the petition and what are those triggers that mean we have to do something.
You okay with that, Tony?
Yeah, let's see what other members think. I got some mixed views on this, but yes, let's see what other members think.
All right then. Giles, you had your hand up?
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, first of all, I think the report's really useful. Well done for bringing that before us. And I think even if you're not looking at ways to interact, it's helpful in that it sets out the democratic process and the structure of meetings we have and their responsibilities. I think a concern for me would be how somebody might find this on the website if they were looking for it or perhaps didn't know it existed and needed the information within it. But regarding the petitions, one thing I'm mindful of in our county, and there are lots of small settlements, and if we set a threshold that's too high for a petition, then that might be unreasonable. So if you've got a small village and there's something that's of great importance to a small group of people, you wouldn't want to set a threshold of 50 like the Welsh Government if that meant no action was taken. I think a lot of this is going to have to be suck it and see. I mean, I think there's clearly a gatekeeping procedure that will stop us being overwhelmed by nonsense, and the monitoring officer will deal with that. I mean, I'd like to see the figure lower than 50. And again, the other thing to bear in mind is some people are very into social media, and a petition can grow very quickly because somebody shares something on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and before you know it, there's thousands of signatures. If you've got somebody who's just about okay with setting up a petition on a website, they're not going to have access to that. So again, it might not get the same sort of traction. But I think probably then what happens afterwards is relevant. And I recall having to during the council chamber having other members comment about not knowing what's happened with their petitions, and I think I've probably complained about that myself, and as Simon Howarth has, regarding Heads of the Valleys issues. So I think what I'd like to be clear about is once we have a petition and it's reached that threshold and we think it's a matter within the remit of the council or where we can exert some pressure, is I'd like to know who owns that petition until it gets reported back to members in one form or another. But otherwise, no, I think it's great, and thank you very much for presenting it to us.
Thank you, Giles. Christopher?
Thank you, Chair. It looks like others have raised my concerns regarding the petition part of this, so I won't cover that again. Looking at the actual strategy document, though, it contains more or less absolutely everything, but I was just wondering, just an observation, why it doesn't contain anything about the role of officers, MCC officers in this, in terms of full council, committee and general day-to-day.
Yeah, fair point. Absolutely. Hadn't thought about it. And I'll look to build something along those lines in.
Thank you.
Okay, that Christopher?
Yes, thanks.
Joanne?
Thank you very much. So I know that I've banged on about the problem with members of the public not being able to submit their questions on time, so I'm delighted that that's coming forwards. And I also think it's a really good idea that we have it that the Constitution refers to a document which is easier to amend rather than having to go through a constitutional amendment every time we want to try and make some sort of improvements in the democratic ways of working. So I think that's a really good way forward. So thank you very much for the work on that. That's great. In terms of the petitions, I really welcome the fact that we're going to be moving to some online petitions. I think that's great. I think the idea that you always have to make sure everything go through your local county councillor to get an issue put forward is a slightly out of date one. The members of the public many members of the public are quite capable of creating a petition and getting momentum behind it. And in fact, they might well find that easier than they would do finding engaging with their local representative. So I think that's a really useful way forwards for the future and to get direct input from members of the public. So I think that's great. In terms of the numbers, I was going to say 50, but Giles has won me over with the idea that small communities might actually be, it might be a really big issue for a very small community. So I don't think 50 is actually going to be the right number, but I'm not sure what is a good number. Yeah, that one is going to be a harder one to quantify, I would say. I personally would like petitions probably to sit with select committees rather than full council. And then select committees work on something and then it goes to council for that further feedback. I just think that there's more time in a select committee for you to actually discuss something. It's not then it would be based on the topic as well, which those particular members should have a greater input on. And if the local councillor wish to be involved in that, then they can come along and attend that particular select committee so that they would still have an input into this thing that was happening in their locale. So that would be where I would prefer it. I have often worried about what happens to a petition after it's gone to full council and then it just seems to vanish. Nothing ever seems to happen about it. There's no means of getting a feedback on that. If things sat with select committees, then at least we'd be able to have it referred to on maybe the forward work planner, that this is a list of the petitions that this committee has still got under its remit, and it just strikes me that would be a more manageable way to keep track of those issues, that maybe we can then start thinking about it and keep an eye on it and make sure that something is happening and that things don't just fall into the ocean of, yes, this is a lovely petition that's been submitted by these people and nothing is ever heard of again. So I do think select might be the right place for it, but the threshold, I'm sorry, the number threshold I am now uncertain. So that one I throw back to the committee for you for that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Sheila?
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of little points really. Regarding the public questions, the 3 days notice, we're currently doing that. It is already in our constitution. So this I just want to clarify that this applies to full council and select committee meetings. It's a good, excellent thing to have done, and I'm pleased that we are doing it. But I just wanted to clarify that does apply to all the various committees.
Yeah.
With regard to, sorry.
Yeah, it'll be across the board. But the constitution at the minute does state 7 days notice for public questions at full council. So that's the main thing we're looking to address with it, really. Okay,
as long as we're moving in the right direction, that's excellent. With regard to the e-petitions, yes, this is very, very interesting, because we really want to engage with our residents and we're constantly asking them for their feedback and how we can do better. This is a good step forward. We're always encouraging people to use my Monmouthshire and that sort of thing. So yeah, absolutely agree with that. I would like to see fewer than 50. I do agree with Giles. I think sometimes some people feel very strongly about a subject, but they haven't always got the time or the sort of ability to talk to their neighbours. So it would be good to think that we could lower that. Like everybody else, I don't know what the sort of a good number would be. I think we need to think about that perhaps a little bit. Or maybe we could have different categories of e-petitions for different numbers of people. And excellent point Joe made about follow-up with regard to petitions that come in. Yes, it would be good to have a trail of where petitions are leading to and what the outcomes of them are. So yes, I'm very keen to engage with the public, and I think this is a good step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Anybody else got any questions? No? Well, there's been some good points there, John.
Yeah, definitely. I'll take that away. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm getting the feeling from members that there's no objection. I mean, we'll leave it in there that members may present their own petitions to full council if they want to, but generally the feeling should be that petitions that reach whatever trigger level we set should go to selects for consideration. I mean, the way it works for Welsh Government obviously is they've got a barrier of 50 signatories, I think it is, before they consider it, but then they've got a dedicated permissions committee that looks at those petitions and decides whether they should take further action on it. So almost like what the selects would play, the role the selects would play then. We get a petition in, it goes to the select for their consideration, and then if there's action to be taken out of it, the recommendation will go to council or cabinet off the back of that. Is there any objections from members on that process, just so I'm clear?
Not from me, no.
I'll take the silence is good.
No,
So again, yeah, and in terms of the number of signatories, this is why we're doing it this way, really, is putting it into a scheme well ahead of statutory implementation and leaving it with the committee rather than sending it through to full council for final decision, just to see how it goes. I think Giles put it right, we'll suck it and see. If we lower it to say 25, which seems to be the theme sort of coming from members' responses, but we get inundated with petitions and we need to do something with it, then it'll be right for it to come back here and for us to reconsider what that trigger level should be and how we take it forward. So I think over the next couple of months, we'll see how it goes, bring it back for review as well before we put it forward to full council for adoption.
You all happy with that? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much. Right. Item 4, members ICT survey.
Thanks, Chair. It's that time of the term really where we need to start thinking about the ICT requirements for members at the next term of council. So what this sort of report, I mean, it gives you an overview of where we are, how we come to giving everybody Surface Pros for this term of council, some of the considerations we need to take into account, and then just some questions that we're proposing to ask members on how they use their equipment, which will then allow us to go away and look at what's appropriate for members for the next term. I think it's worth noting that back in 2017, when we had the last set of elections, our IT again was in a different place where we had different members using different devices on different versions of Windows, and support was just becoming very difficult. Everybody having a Surface Pro has improved the level of service that I can provide you through my team, because everyone's got the same equipment and everyone can pick it up a lot quicker. Bearing that in mind going forward is a key issue really, but everybody now, no matter what device they're on, will be on Windows 10 and Office 365. So if you have a laptop or you had a Surface Pro, essentially we can support you in more or less the same way. Questions for the committee really is just, are those questions appropriate? Are they right? Is there anything else you want to add in so we can get a fuller picture on what it is that members want their IT to do? And then we'll bring it back at the next meeting of the committee with some options of what equipment's available, and we'll look to be getting these ordered in well before the end of the year really, to make sure we've got stock in place for the election. SRS have got time to build and prepare all the computers ready, and then we won't have any issues for procurement come May next year. So again, back to members, if there's anything I've missed, please let me know and we'll get to add it, look to add it in.
Chris.
Thanks, Chair. Looking at the questions there, obviously the fewer the questions, the more likely people will actually complete this survey in the first place. And no doubt we'll have a mixed bag of councillors with all different experiences next year as well. But I was just thinking perhaps a question along the lines of, would you have benefited from additional initial guidance stroke support being set up with your ICT? Whether any members, when they're completing that survey, could complete an answer to that sort of question.
Yeah, no problem. We can add that in. I think it's worth noting, or just me mentioning that with the induction program for next year, there'll be multiple just digital drop-in days whether they're online or whether they're actually in person. There'll be lots of those, and we did them in the 2017 election as well, where it just gives opportunity for members to drop in and ask questions about any bit of their IT really. So that's planned into the induction already.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. Sheila?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple, well, one observation, obviously, by the time we get to looking at what's available now, it's a lot different to what was available when we were all elected at the last election. So it'd be interesting to see what is out there now that could be advantageous to us. But the one thing that I wanted to mention is if you want to join a Teams meeting using your Surface Pro, you have to be, as far as I'm aware, it's still the case, you have to be in, either at home or in an MCC building, because if you try to use it, for example, if you're sort of in another building other than MCCs, the firewall prevents you from accessing it. I just wondered if that still is the case. I've never tried it myself because I've always thought that to join a meeting, if I'm out and about, it would have to be via my phone to pick it up. But I think that would be useful, because I know when I tried initially to access my sort of Google things, when I've been in a hotel or in a cafe having a meeting with somebody, the firewalls prevented me from going online. And I just think that would be more helpful if we could actually access with this sort of remote working that we're doing now.
I think the Teams meetings are fine. The firewall shouldn't block you from doing that, because officers of the council are using them from home as well as in Monmouthshire buildings. So if it was a firewall issue, then it would stop you there. But in terms of Google, like Gmail and all those, the Google accounts, they're blocked. That's an SRS admin policy that those Google accounts are blocked. But Microsoft stuff, Teams, Outlook and everything else, you should be able to pick up through any network. But if you've got a specific scenario, perhaps you want to run by me after the meeting, Sheila, then happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's things like accessing planning portal and things like that. But yes, perhaps we can have a look at that.
Yeah.
I've always used my own tablet because I find it difficult to go to the Surface Pro if I'm out and about. But I just thought I'd mention that now.
Thank you, Sheila. Tony?
Yeah, just one topic in the string of questions, John. Once we return to physical meetings, is it your intention to attend, etc., etc.? How far down the line are we as a council, county council that is, in ability to have blended meetings? Because we've had blended meetings in Caldicot Town Council, and it took a little while, but they are, now this particular late stage, becoming workable. We haven't really tried it in Monmouthshire. What do you see? Where do you see us going with that?
Well, in effect, Councillor Reeson, we're doing it now with the three of us here in a room, and everyone else remoting in. We've done it for Cabinet. We've done it for a few other meetings. Essentially, with it, what we haven't done is upscale it necessarily to a full chamber.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
But the work to get the chamber set up to where we need to be is going to happen in mid-October. So the procurement's already underway. We've already gone through the tender exercise. The equipment, the way it will work has been tested and worked through, and everything's on order basically. But the work for the chamber to make sure we can embed Teams into the chamber and have 30-40 people in the chamber and other people remoting in, that'll be ready mid-November time. It's going to take about a month for the work to complete. So they'll come in mid-October, take out any bits we don't need, put the new stuff in. Mid-November, early December probably is the best bet in terms of having a fully functional chamber with all the technology we need to make this run smoothly. But in terms of smaller numbers, then we can already do it like we're proving now.
Yeah. The other point then coming to in terms of physical meetings as opposed to remote ones is, for example, we take a longer meeting tomorrow morning, but sometimes on a licensing meeting it takes 20-25 minutes. I don't see any problem in working from home for 25 minutes rather than come all the way to us, come back. Would we still be promoting a way of running meetings in general?
Sorry, can you repeat that last point there, Tony?
Sorry, John. Yes. I'm quite happy running a licensing meeting, for example, which lasts 20-25 minutes rather than come to us, come back. Would we looking at the policy, well, from now on, I suppose, in running meetings in that way? Larger meetings which take a long time for select committee, for example, come to us. A 20-minute meeting we could still carry out on Teams.
Yeah. A few meetings ago of the committee, we looked at that, what meetings were appropriate to stay online, and other ones where we prefer a hybrid mix, whether they're in person or not. And we surveyed all the members as well to see what their preference would be. And the strong response there was that we offer flexibility with remote attendance where any member wants it. I think ultimately as well, it'll come down to the chair's decision of whether they want the meeting in person or whether they want to do it remotely. But ultimately, from May next year, we have to offer remote attendance for members at meetings, whether the chair likes it or not. So with that stipulation there, every meeting by default will become a hybrid meeting, and anything else in terms of members being required to come into the building will be at a member's choice. My preference, I think my preference would be that, again, like you say, some of the smaller committees where we know attendance is improved by holding it solely remotely, and where the chair is happy to do so, then I think we should continue to push the remote meeting where it works for the committee.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, Chair.
Giles?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to come back on this question of the choice of hardware, and the answer feels I can understand the logic in us all having the same thing, so it's simple to resolve any issues, but it does feel a little bit the prisoner. You know, I'm not a number, and surely if the software is going to be the same across the devices, there must be some laptops or notebooks where you can have a variation in screen or keyboard size, but that in terms of the functionality are the same to manage and deal with any issues. I mean, we're supposed to provide the IT to deal with members' needs, and I know in the past you've offered members extra help, or I understand other sort of devices you can perhaps attach, but to give an example, and I should think that probably the same applies to most members, I doubt anybody is reading the agenda for this meeting on the same screen as they're interacting with Teams. I'm not. I've got mine. I've unfortunately got my work computer with another couple of screens, and again in planning I'll have the Surface Pro on for the purposes of Teams, while I'll have the agenda on one screen, and I might have something like Google Maps on another if I want to look at a particular site we're debating. And I just think it's just a little bit unreasonable to try and contain us to one particular device. And I know you need to order stuff in advance of the next election, but if there's an option to look at ones with some variation but are essentially the same once you peel back all the covers, then couldn't you order so many of one and so many of another, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Giles. I think in 2017 we didn't have that option because of the variances, like I explained earlier on. We have that now, so there could be the flexibility to look at ordering so many different devices. Again, I think another issue we got to chat to get over and place some presumptions on is who's actually going to be re-elected next May. As much as members want a certain type of device now, if the result didn't go the way they want it to, then the in-person coming in might want a different device. So we're just guessing a little bit if we start putting variances into it. But again, I think what it is we'll look at now is let's work out what the members' needs are, and then we'll bring the options to the table at the next committee meeting for us to actually look at what is available, and then that's when we can look at how we break it down and what devices are worthwhile us having or not having.
Do you want to come back in, Giles?
Well, I accept that, Chair. Thanks very much.
Right, thank you. Right, if there's nothing else on that issue, we go on to item 5, the election update. introduction election update.
Thanks, Chair. Should only be a brief item. This, as like we say, we've got it as a standing item now for every meeting up to next year's election. We haven't done too much in terms of the induction programme throughout August or since our last meeting. But what I have prepared is a candidate website for anybody who wants to stand as a candidate at next year's election, and the links included in the report. I think crucially it includes all the new boundary ward maps as well, not necessarily perhaps at the scale we want, but they're there, and people can get in touch with us if we need to do some more work with them on that. So again, really it's just seeing if you've got any feedback, anything again I've missed off the website that would be useful. But it covers the boundary maps, the role of the council, some scenarios from councillors who've been elected as to what the role is about, bits on the election process, there are bits on the induction process on there as well, and some key dates for that. I think the one thing I would say at the minute is it's still draft. We're not going to push it out yet because Welsh Government are consulting on some new rules for the election and how candidates can submit nominations and things like that. And that's not likely to be in place until the end of November, and we can't obviously share information on how to stand for election until we've actually got the rules in place that are going to tell us how to do it. But it gives us a bit of time to update this and jig things around if any members have got any feedback on it.
Any questions, members? Tony?
I got one, Chair.
Go.
Back to your last couple of comments, John, regarding issue in November of, I presume that's the boundary commissions or our views where we are with MCC. To Christ, can we words like will be November, not October?
No. So the boundary reviews should be signed off by Welsh Government this month at some point. So we should have formal notification of the boundaries actually being adopted for next May. The rules for November are Welsh Government are looking at changing some of the rules on how candidates actually stand for election.
Right, okay.
Some examples are online submission of nomination papers, the ability to submit personal statements that we've got to publish as part of the nomination process, things like that. Until we get those rules in, we can't really tell candidates how they're going to stand for election or how they can interact with us to get us their nominations in. So until we get that's the position we're at.
Okay, I found my hand now. Yeah.
All right, Tony.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Joanne?
Thank you. The website looks great. Looks really interesting. Is it live now in order to share? That's one thing I'm not quite sure about, because you were saying about waiting to hear about boundaries and stuff. So is that?
Yeah. No, it's a live website at the minute. We're not doing any publicity to push it out necessarily, just because, like I say, some of the rules are going to be changing. But it's there to share around if you want to now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Giles?
Thanks. I had a look at the website as well. I think it's really useful, and particularly the ward maps. And had I waited a day before bothering you with my question last week, John, I could have found the answer for myself, couldn't I? But yeah, it's really interesting. I'm looking at the pictures of the candidates, and I'm not sure that I'm going to pose for a picture with a chicken on my shoulder, but it just shows a variety of people who are willing to put themselves for public service. So thanks very much.
Good. Any other questions? No? No. Right, item 6, minutes of the previous meeting. Somebody propose? Correct?
Move.
Chair.
Move.
Thank you. Thank you. And item 7, the date of the next meeting is on the 8th of November.
Sorry, Chair, can I cut in there?
Of course you can.
Thank you. My name is missing from the minutes, I've noticed.
Right.
And I was definitely there. I remember Matt Phillips' long
Yes.
yes argument.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Sorry about that. Nicola will make sure it's sorted. Right. Somebody move them then, please.
Move.
Right. Thank you.
Move.
Right, and the date of the next meeting is the 8th of November. Can I thank you all very much? Now, let you go back in your gardens now in the sun.
Thank you, Chair.
With a cold lager.
If only.
Right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
See you,
Chair.
everybody.